So, hey folks, we have just arrived here in Highgate. I'm here with Riki Houlden this evening. He's a multiple open champion, so he should know a thing or two about fives. He's kindly offered to teach about drop shots and why they're so important in the game. The drop shot is the quite often soft shot at the front wall, very important in the game just to be able to do them, but there's a lot more nuance to them that Riki is going to go into hopefully this evening, and it will be better for it to the end.
Thanks, Archie. So Archie has come down very kindly, 2-hour drive down to make it here today to Highgate and to try to do some masterclass type videos, something new. We're going to try together, try to bring some new shots into the game for everyone and some nuances to them to help you further your fives. Now, obviously there's lots of shots we can talk about in fives, but we're not going to start with ridiculous, crazy things, slices, left-hand slices, shots from over behind the buttressing, jumping volleys. They're cool, but they're not actually things that you need too much. They don't come through a lot. You should be starting with the basics and how to make them a lot better as things that come in regularly in the game and can change the pattern of play and who's on top in the rally and who's behind. So for most people, there'll be 1 or 2 things they think about in a drop shot. I want to bring that a lot more, bring you 5 main points you should be thinking about and go through those with you today.
Superb. Right, well, let's go have a look.
Cool.
So, Riki, I guess where do we start? What do you think?
So, but there are 5 points that we're going to talk about, and they'll be sort of in order of what happens in the shot. There's obviously lots to fives that we can talk about and think about, but this is going more specifically in the drop shot. So the first point is thinking about where your head is in relation to the ball. What I see with a lot of players near the beginning, or even at a pretty good Div 2 level, they're still hitting their drops with quite a straight arm out in front of them. And if the ball is quite far away from you, and you're trying to hit a drop, it's much harder to control that than if you get your head really close to the ball and watch it from really close to your face. Now, the reason behind that, you can think about the biomechanics if you want to, which I have because I like all of that. When you're closer to the ball, you have much more bend in your elbow and your shoulder, and so you have a lot more control with doing different things at different joints. As soon as your head is far away from the ball, not only are you having to focus from further away, which is more difficult for your eyes to be able to judge the depth, you also have far fewer things that you can change in that shot at the last level. So then you end up always having to hit the ball up, or you have a lot less control. The power might be a tiny bit off and you're going to shoot off. So by having your head really close to the ball, that makes a really big difference on how well you can control it and where you want to get the ball. So point number 1 is get your head close to the ball. Point 2 is backspin. So you want to be generating spin off the ball from your hand. It goes without saying that obviously at some points when you're doing a drop shot, you're scrambling enough that it's quite hard to follow the ball and you're just trying to get the ball back. But this is about saying, look, all of these steps are how you can maximize the efficacy of that drop shot if you have the control to do so. We'll talk about, look, if you can't do it, there's other things you can do, but when you can, you want to generate backspin. So I think that goes without saying. If you've got a ball that's not spinning at all off the front wall, when it hits, it's going to go pop and come back up and it'll be a nice easy volley for your opponent. While if it's generating backspin, when it hits that front wall, it's going to come back down and it's much harder to give a volley away for your opponent. The main thing that you want to be achieving with your drop shot is that you're not trying to win the rally off this point. You're not trying to make it impossible for your opponent to hit the ball. You're just trying to avoid getting volleyed. And so that's your key thing you need to be focusing on. If your drops aren't getting volleyed, then you're doing really well. If your drops are getting volleyed, you need to work on them. And you'll find that as you push and progress further into more advanced games, people are starting to volley things that you previously weren't getting volleyed for. And that's because people are getting better at overarm volleying, being able to anticipate your shots, and therefore your drop shot quality needs to increase as well. Hugo and I certainly have found ourselves, going up against people like Tom, Seb, all the other top guys, you really have to up your drop shot game, and this is one of the key things trying to develop backspin. So, cool. So in terms of generating spin, it's like any other shot. It's about how you're going to roll the ball off your glove. You want to be hitting, generally, a drop shot, you're going to be coming towards the front wall. So you want the ball to be rolling up across your hand from the fingertips to your palm. Now note that's very different to your usual backspin shots that you're going to be hitting. Usually when you're hitting a backspin shot and you're doing it overarm, you're going to be going from the bottom of the palm up. So on a drop shot, you're going more from your fingers up along the palm. Roll up like that. And as it does that, you generate a lot of backspin that therefore brings it down as it hits the front wall. Yeah, so this is where I don't put any spin on the ball. I'm hinging at the elbow and at the shoulder. Here, the ball is just going to hit off the front wall and follow whatever trajectory it's doing off the front. And so if I've got a downward trajectory, that's fine. It's not going to give a volley away. but I have to be trusting that I'm getting it in the right trajectory. Whilst whether your trajectory is good or not, as soon as you go to more of a backspin, you're going to be able to keep the ball down and avoid giving away a volley. And so in terms of the technique, you can see that I'm sort of pushing my hand underneath and sort of digging underneath the ball. I'm doing it very exaggeratedly, of course, but you can see how I'm just getting my fingers underneath and straightening my elbow out as I go forward. Next. So point 3 is the one which I think is least appreciated of the 5 points, but actually probably the most important. It's about the trajectory. I was mentioning in point 2 about the trajectory of the ball. Now that's different to the spin, it's different to where it hits on the wall, it's the movement of the ball up to the front wall. So if you point towards this way, let's say that we're going to hit the ball at the same point on the front wall either way. It's important that we get the drop shot low, obviously, but whether we get this trajectory going so that the ball is rising as it hits the front wall, so that is, let's say this is the point we're going to hit, the ball is rising as it hits the front wall, it's going to pop up after. Whilst if you can get a trajectory where the ball has already reached its peak and then falls as it hits the front wall, then it's going to come straight down over here and doesn't give a volley away. So this is one of the most important points I think people need to recognize about an effective drop. Actually, it's not about where you're hitting it on the front wall, it's not about the spin, it's if you get the trajectory right, then that sorts everything out for you. Even a ball that's actually hitting quite high on the front wall, if it's coming down steeply, isn't overarm volleyable. And so with that, you have to get used to the idea of, look, you're not aiming here on the front wall, you're aiming in this nebulous space here where there is no wall. You're thinking that's where the peak of my shot is, and that's where I want the ball to end up. So if we cut and then try to do a few of those. So here we'll just do a sort of normal flat, whoop, way up. We'll go a normal flat shot that's going up, and you can see how that's poking up as it hits the front wall. They're all hitting low on the front wall, but they're very overarm volleyable. See, I can get there and hit that. Every shot there is nice and low, but it's still popping up after. Well, if I hit it so then it's falling as it hits the front wall, like that, then that's not giving anything away. If the ball is falling as it hits the front wall.
That's a really good demonstration for that. How does that interplay with backspin?
Yeah, so as soon as you combine these other elements, so saying that you've got the backspin in there as well, it means that even if that shot was going a little bit too high, you've still got more steep angle once it hits the front wall. If you're hitting with backspin, as it's going up off the front wall, interestingly what happens is you're going to have backspin, 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 it's going to hit there, it's actually going to ping off a bit more. Let's say you had topspin on it, the ball goes up more vertically. So we'll talk about that in a different video, but if you put topspin on it, then it's going to be easier to get a lob because it's going to ping off the front wall like that. If you're putting backspin on it with an upward trajectory, it actually pings off quite nicely to be volleyed down. And so it's really important, look, backspin is better than not having backspin, but it's particularly effective when the ball is already arcing down, it just gives nothing away. Point 4 is very easy, it's the one which everyone knows, is hitting it low on the front wall. So obviously if you're close to hitting it low on the front wall, the lower it is, the less likely you are to be giving something away to your opponent. Trying to avoid hitting the ledge, of course, because if it hits that and it pops up, then you're giving something away. But getting it nice and low, and as you've already recognized, combining this with point 2 and point 3 is really important in order to make that as effective as possible. But actually, I don't think trying to get it as low as possible is the key. It's points 2 and 3 are much more important. As soon as you pull yourself away from trying to get it as low as possible, you'll stop hitting the ledge as much, you'll give yourself a bit more of a margin of error, and you'll find that actually you're not giving away as many volleys because you're letting the ball arc down, getting more backspin, and you're not worried about hitting the ledge so much. Point 5 is hopefully something that most of you will recognize, but there's a few nuances to it that I want to add as well. So the idea is, if you're going to hit a drop shot and you want to avoid getting volleyed, you're going to do a much better job of that if you use the side wall than if you don't. So if you hit a drop shot that's going to be flat into the middle of the top step, even if you do everything nicely there, you're giving your opponent quite a few options. Either they get to the volley and they can hit something left way, right way, going around to the back corners. If it bounces, then they have shots all over the place that they can try to do. You're not restricting their options. It's not a disaster, it's still an effective drop. But much more effective is if you can get the ball somewhere in this sort of section and you're restricting the opposition's options heavily. You're reducing the number of things they can do. You can start anticipating what their next shot will be and be ready for the volley. And sometimes you can get outright winners as well. You've probably faced yourself, sometimes the ball will be right glued up against here or glued over here, and you end up finding, look, I'm worried about, I'm going to break my fingers, or you're swiping across and you're not getting the ball quite right. You can sometimes even clip this and then you can get a winner off that. So it's about using the sidewall. Now some nuances to that. If you're hitting a ball that's nice and close to the side wall already, you want to be aiming for this lower edge. coming down here, going directly down, you can probably see that it's just about trying to get that straight in line. And if you miss that, that's okay. So this is the target, because if it hits that, you're going to ping off to the side. You're going to make it very difficult for them to get back. If you miss it, then you either hit here and it stays nice and close, still difficult, or it comes here, stays nice and close, still difficult. So very effective target is to aim for here when you're already close to the side wall. If you push it too far to the side, you clip this, pops up, and gives something away. So when you're close to the side wall, where your ball is going to hit close to the side wall in the first place, you want to straighten the ball up and get it down here. That relies on some side spins, and I'll show you that in a second. But before I do, if the ball is hitting over here, those are your targets. If the ball is over here, it's actually a different target. If you try to aim for this same edge, what happens is even if you hit this edge, you're either going to pop up this way, it's going to hit here, pop up like that, or it's going to come over here and it'll still have quite a lot of life in it. So whether you miss the target to the left, miss the target to the right, or hit the target perfectly, from this angle, it's not that effective a shot. So instead of aiming for there, you want to aim for this lower nick down here. By aiming for that lower nick, that's a concept that we use in squash quite a lot. From this sort of angle, the more angled it is, the more effective the nick is. So you go for the front wall, you're hitting down here. If you hit just above the nick, the ball will roll quite low. If you hit just before the nick, then the ball will tend to bounce, lose a lot of its life, and just sort of die in that corner. So this is your target you're going for when you're further away from the side. Right. Yeah, so here I'll just do, what I'll do is I'll just keep on playing drop shots, and hopefully you'll see when the ball is over here, I'll try to aim and hit it straight. When the ball is over here, and I'll try to get a little bit of side spin like this with a bit of right way spin to try to dig it down that way. When it's over here, I'll try to do a little bit of left way spin to straighten it up. You can see here, when I'm coming over to the side, I can just generate a little bit of right way spin like that in order to pull the ball into the side wall. So that's combining, once you're confident being able to control some backspin, and you want to start generating that right way spin to get the ball back into the right hand wall. As it sort of pulls in, it makes it more difficult for your opposition. No.
But even ones when you're close to that edge give you pause for thought. Like you might just come in and shoot at it. You've got to play it carefully because if it does shoot off an angle,
Exactly.
you immediately lose points.
Exactly. And
It's really interesting to see.
you can see the times where when the ball is nice and tight, you can see me struggling. I've had to step back an extra step. I'm hitting the ball from behind me. I'm actually likely to give away a volley to an opposition who can see that I'm struggling and will step in. Whilst conversely, if I can get that spin right, the ball goes into the front wall, it kicks and does something a bit nasty for my opposition. They're going to struggle on the next shot. I sometimes get this, the ball's going to go towards them and they have to do something funky to get it back. In the drop shots, you're not trying to win the point outright, you're trying to create these opportunities to get you on top in the rally. So by hitting those shots in, that causes them trouble. You see that opportunity come, you get forward and come in for that next shot.
I think that's very much an aspect of higher level players. That these individual shots are not going to necessarily win a game. You might get lucky, you might come off and really take someone unexpectedly. But it's about trying to make that opening or that slightly looser one that you think come in and volley to the opposite side.
Exactly.
Where they're not.
Exactly. An effective drop will nullify an attack that has come at you and completely neutralize the position, sometimes take it from your defending to your attacking. And so that's why it's such a crucial shot to start to develop in your armory, because once you play it well, it just makes a huge difference.
Okay, so we've kind of been through the five points. I think I can remember them.
You don't want to overload yourself by giving you all of them at once. So that's a key point too. Yeah. So you can, I think, in terms of the first thing you might want to work on is just trying to develop some backspin if you want. And a key point that comes up in high-level sports everywhere is a sort of process, not outcome approach. So when we hit these backspin shots, I want you to think more about how you're hitting the shot, how much backspin you're generating. Don't worry about where it goes on the front wall, where it goes on the side wall. I just want you to see that you're generating backspin off an underarm shot. Yeah.
The same thing does apply.
Everything applies. It's just a bit more difficult because you're non-dominant. Good. Now if you bend your knees a little bit more, come into the shot and try to get underneath it. So at the moment you're still quite vertical, so it's harder to get your ball under the hand underneath the ball. Well, if you get nice and low, it's easier to get your hand under. Really nice. So you can see how you're generating lots of backspin. That's really good. Really good. Good. Yeah? Yeah, don't worry, it comes with time. So that's the key thing. By getting under the ball a lot more, you're able to get that backspin, and that's what I want. So nice and low. That was a bit good. Want you to get a bit lower than that, a bit lower. Really nice. And a bit softer with your hit as well. So with backspin, an important point that we're going to talk about in terms of, oh, very nice shots. An important point to talk about in terms of the efficacy of shots, about how you're going to, we're going to talk about how to do shot selection or shot execution generally. With shots, I want you to divide what's actually happening with the top half of your body and your lower half. The lower half is there to generate power for you. The top half is there to generate spin. Obviously there's a tiny bit of overlap, but the more you can divide them, the better. So a lot of people who try to come in and play a drop shot for your example, where you're trying to generate a lot of backspin, you started hitting harder to try to get more spin. Yeah. And that's great. Obviously you can generate more spin by doing that, but you're also going to lose the other aspects. Exactly. So if you want to generate power, you can do that through pushing off your back leg. That gives you the power, while the hand is just very gently skimming the ball. And so if you hit the ball with a really gentle skim really quickly, you get a lot of spin, but very little power, while you can generate the power off your back leg if you need to. So when you're hitting drops where you're trying to hit the ball just over the ledge, you don't want a lot of power. You don't need to do too much pushing off with your leg. You're just gently moving your body to the right position, while your arm is doing a very quick motion without it generating a lot of power. So quick hand, but not a huge amount of contact, just a very fine skim. Very nice. Good. Good. So your hand is pushing forward quite rapidly, but you're not pushing through the ball, you're pushing underneath it. Really nice. Good. So those are some really nice shots. I think I'm happy that you're generating some backspin. You may have noticed yourself, you're generating that arc naturally. The ball is actually falling as it hits the front wall because you're having to hit the ball like that.
It's a lot more up and down as a shot, whereas previously I've hit that and it's been quite straight as a shot.
Exactly. So you're already getting that arc nicely, so I won't change that anymore. Let's see if you can try to get it onto the side a bit more. So aiming for that side ledge. There you go. So you can see what happened there if we just pause for a second. When the ball was going into that corner, just right at the far left, you were going really into that angle and allowing the ball to keep on going in that direction. When that happens, it hits that left side wall or the left ledge and it pops out. So if you're going to go really far into the left-hand side, you need to generate a little bit of right way spin. So with a left-hand underarm, you're going to go slightly across that way. If it's a right-hand underarm and you're trying to generate the counter spin, you have to go that way. The natural spin is to generate left way spin, as you can probably recognize. So what's best is if you aim a little bit further to the right on the front wall, so then it digs in that way. So aim a little bit further right and still generate that back spin and left way spin. Very nice. Good. Don't forget the backspin. Really nice. Really nice. That's a nice shot. Really nice.
It was a very different setup to my shot, just being that much lower. And I'm quite used to hitting this as a...
Exactly, where you're quite straight up.
Yeah, upright shot, so it's a very different motion, but I can feel the amount of backspin I'm getting.
Exactly.
Much more, so cool.
Exactly. So in terms of your drill that you're going to do for yourself at home, for everyone at home as well, just get on the court, hit some shots into the corner like that. You know what your targets are. Think one step at a time. So first you want to be making sure your head is low. You want to be getting close to the ball. 2, then you're going to be thinking about, am I generating the backspin? Don't worry about the later steps, 3, 4, 5, until you're happy, okay, I can do number 1, I can do number 2, then move on one at a time. Don't try to do all of them at once, and don't work from the outcome backwards. You've got to start from a good foundation and then move yourself forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then gradually just trying to practice hitting those targets, getting that ledge where you want it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ricky.
No problem at all.
I know you've got a game to get to, so
really good fun.
enjoy. Thank you very much.
This is our first in a series of masterclass videos, so please do tell us if there's anything more that we can do that would be valuable to you. We're very open.
Sort of topic that anyone's after.
Exactly.
I'm going to try and get a few people involved.
Nice.
Ricky.
Yeah.
Ricky is fantastic, but we'll try and get some others
I'm
involved.
too small to do some of the higher shots. We should probably get Hugo or Tom to do some of the big volleys. So yeah, I can do something.
Over the budget stuff. Yeah, fantastic.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate.